Today you're going to draw your name in 3D with 2-point perspective. 2-point perspective basically means that there are 2 points that all of your letters are going to end at a vanishing point. A vanishing point is just a fancy way of saying that these letters that get smaller in the distance closer to the point of vanishing are further away, and then the ones that get further away from the vanishing point are closer. So you can see near and far, and that's basically 2-point perspective. So to begin, we have to set up our paper with a lot of measuring. If it's in your sketchbook, then you're going to turn your sketchbook sideways so that it is wide. You have more space to work with, and it'll measure out really nicely. First thing you're going to do is actually measure the height of your paper, and it should be around 9 inches. So if you use the inches side, not the centimeter side, and halfway would be 4.5. I'm going to do the same on the other side. 9 inches, halfway is 4.5. Now I've got 2 marks that I can match my ruler up to and draw a line that I will eventually erase. So with that in mind, don't draw too hard. Make it so that you can eventually erase it. I'm going to go hard with my line so that you can see it from far away. Now I'm going to measure this line in half. So I'm going to use the inches side. It's about 12 inches. So the middle would be 6. And I need another anchor line. I can't just draw a line up and down and be kind of slanted. So I'm just going to go to the top of my paper and mark the middle of it. Another 6-inch halfway point. And now I have 2 anchor points, 1, 2, to draw a line all the way down vertically. When you hold the ruler, make sure you're using it with 2 fingers rather than just 1 pressure point, because that will make it slide. So make sure that you are spreading out your hand and using 2 pressure points so that it won't slide on you. This line will be erased as well, partially, not fully, so draw lightly. All right, the last measurements we are going to measure is halfway from our halfway point in the middle. We're going to measure 3 inches up. So I'm going to, I like to just start from here. There's my 3-inch point and all the way up to 0 right there. So 3 inches up, and then you're going to do the same on the bottom. So from the halfway point, 3 inches down. So there is our last measurement. Now we have to do some connecting. And when we connect, you can see 4 points. So here's 1 point, this other point right here on the edge where you measured halfway, 3rd point, and 4th point. And you are going to connect all of them with lines that you will erase. So please make sure that you're drawing lightly. Match up your points as best as you can, and you'll end up with a diamond. A diamond is a great shape to show perspective of near and far because the center is large and the ends or outside edges are small, meaning it shows near bigger, and then as it goes in the distance, it gradually gets smaller. So the next step you're going to need to do is decide what is the middle of your name. So if you look at my name, Marlo, I have a 5-letter name. So I could have done the space as the middle, but it doesn't really work out so well. So you got to decide how many letters you want on the right side of your middle line right here and how many letters you want on the left side. I decided to do 2 letters on the left and 3 letters on the right. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine, but you're going to start in the middle. So I started with my letter A. I'm going to do the name Trevor. So you might want to write out your name like this in all capitals. We are not doing any lowercase. And then slowly work your way in until you find the middle. So Trevor's middle letter is not a letter, it's a space. So this is easy. It's 6 letters, so 3 on each side. So I'm going to start with the letter E, which is in the middle, one of the middle letters. So I'm going to do E and V right here. All right. So with a block letter, you have to use a block. All right. So that means a square. So for instance, if I were drawing a letter E in a block, the block would be like this, a rectangle though, not a square. And then inside that block, my letter E would fit and go out to all edges. You see that? So the bottom of the block is the bottom of the E, the bottom of the block is the top of the E, and then the sides of the block are the sides of the E. Let's talk about a T for a block letter. You don't draw all this on your paper, but I'm just demonstrating. So for instance, a T would touch the top of the block, and then the middle would not touch the block until it gets to the bottom. Curvy letters are a little tricky, and I have a little handout for you to look at. But if you look, you can see curvy letters, you kind of take the curve off by just making it more boxy, hence the name block letter. Think of it like a clock. If you look at a clock, it has like the number 5. It almost looks like the letter S. All right, and all of the zeros on a digital clock are boxes. So we have to think about that. So my D, it's almost like a rectangle, but then the points on this side are cut off. The B, same thing. It just has a little dip in the middle, but the points are cut off. So you're going to use this to help you with specific letters like X. That's really tricky. V can get a little tricky. Any letters with basically curves. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is draw your middle letter. So back to where my name, Trevor. We'll start with the E. So I'm going to make my box. So my first line of my box is the center line. All of my lines are parallel to the center line, all my vertical lines. And all of my horizontal lines are parallel either to the top diagonal line or the bottom diagonal line. So we'll talk more about that in a minute. So I'm going to make my box. It's not going to be a perfect rectangle like this because it's getting smaller in the distance. So now here's my E. So I'm going to draw the inside of my E right here. And then look, the top of my E has to go parallel with this line. So I'm going to go, and it has to go all the way to the edge. The middle of my E can just be parallel to the middle of the paper because it's in the middle. And the middle line is just perfectly straight horizontally. All right, so there's my E. And notice I'm not making it 3D yet. Right now it's just block letters. So a block letter E. I'm gonna do my V. So let's make a V, a block letter. So I'm gonna start over here with my V. I'm not gonna start it on the same line as my E. It needs to be over a little space between. So I'm gonna draw the first line of my block and the second line of my block. So in this box right here has to be a V. So I'm going to angle my V inward, and I'm going to draw my parallel lines to the inside of the V, and then these are going to be parallel here. So there's my V, and I can erase this line right here and this line right here. Okay, now that I've got my two middle letters, I can keep going with the last two letters on the right or the last two letters on the left. So I'm going to go with my O, but first remember, before you begin any letter, make a block. So two vertical lines parallel to the center line. So there's my O, and an O is basically a rectangle with the corners cut off. Okay, so you can look at the O on here. Actually, you could even just do a rectangle with a smaller rectangle inside. Or you can go like this. It's really up to you. Make sure you use your ruler. I almost stopped not using my ruler there. Okay, and then I can get rid of the box part that doesn't need to be there. And then my R. So remember, build a box. There's my box. And now I put my R in it. So let's see, I'm gonna go slant it here. Sometimes you don't need your ruler depending on the line. So there's my R. So now I just need to finish the other side of my name, well, not my name, but Trevor's name. And I'm going to start with a box. Always begin with a box, 2 parallel lines. So I've got another R. And you can be building right now your blocks and adding your letters. If you have a longer name than 6 letters, then you really need to think about making your letters really small, or you could possibly use your last name. Depends on what you want to do, what you're comfortable doing. Make sure if you do not use all your box edges to erase them. So my last letter is a T. Build a box. I like to start off with T's, just drawing a line all the way across that shows me where I need to stop on my vertical line. And then I erase the line inside. So now, once you get to this step, you need to erase a couple of lines to make things a little easier on yourself. You need to erase one, the center line. No longer do you need that line. So have a pink eraser handy, a big eraser. And then lastly, you no longer need these diagonal lines except for where it makes the letters of your name. So this is a little tedious. That's why it's important to draw lightly, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a lot of lines that won't erase. So the last and final step requires you to use 2 points, which is the whole name of this project, 2-point perspective. So you still need to really think about these 2 points and don't take your eyes off of them. So to really make this easy, think about opposites. So this right point you will use for everything on the left. And this left point you will use for everything on the right. Let me explain to you what that means. So I'll start with my T, and it's on everything on the left here is going to use this right point. So you're going to match the ruler to every point of your T, or your first letter, and this point over here. So, and then you just draw your line and then stop when it gets to the next letter. And it's going to make it look like this letter has a 3rd dimension, which is depth, and that it goes and continues beyond the letter beside it, but the letter beside it is blocking the rest of the view. So now, I got one more point on that T. Just anytime there is a point. So now it looks like that T just continues on. It keeps going back into the space. So I'm going to do my R now. And inside my R are a bunch of lines too. And I just keep my ruler on this right point. It's kind of hard to keep it there, but you just have to keep lining it up, looking at both points before you begin to draw. And even in this R, there's a little dip where the top part of the R ends and the bottom part of the R begins. You have to create a line there too. Just gives it another dimension. So there's my R, all complete. And then my E will be the last letter that I need to draw with the right point. And after this, after the letter E, or my middle letter, my last letter on the left, I switch to the point on the left. So now I need to stop. I'm moving on to a letter on the right, and I am going to use my left point. There's one more thing I noticed, and that is that my letter E needs to stop at some point and let my V continue. So if you look at this one, there has to be a stopping point for that middle letter so that the next letter can have a side view, and this V does not have a side view right here. So what you can do is erase a little bit. Let me put my V back here. And you add a little bit of the left side of this second letter. So this one's going to go here. Here. And then you connect them with a vertical line that's parallel. This line will actually connect here. And then these lines for the E will just kind of end. And there you go. Your name in 3D. When you're finished, make sure that you add your color correctly, appropriately. So let's talk about color. You're going to pick one color and make that be the side view of everything, because that'll just help and make it consistent so that you can really understand what's happening in this drawing, that you have a side view and a front view. Then on the front view of all of your block letters, you can either add a pattern, different colors, whatever you want to make those stand out. And then lastly, even if you use a marker on the sides, you're going to get a black marker and you're going to add a little bit of a shadow in areas that would make it be darker. So think in the back, like far away, like places that are tucked back, like inside of this A. You'll have a darker shadow there. Tucked back behind the A, the back of the M, more shadow right here. So think about where the shadows would be in those areas. And then once you've finished with your shadow, then your drawing is complete.